Welcome to Mars Venus Coaching. I am your gender intelligence coach, Clay Smith. We all know that communication is the cornerstone of any successful relationship. Yet, even the strongest couples can face those moments when their ability to connect and understand one another falters. When communication breaks down, it can feel like an unsurmountable challenge, leaving both partners feeling isolated and misunderstood. In today's episode, I want to introduce to you a relationship tool designed to help you and your partner navigate through these difficult times. The timeout technique will offer you a structured process that not only addresses immediate communication issues, but will also equip you with sustainable methods for future interactions. We're going to take a look at what the timeout technique entails, when you would need to utilize it, and how to initiate a timeout when that tension is high. By understanding and utilizing John Gray's process of the timeout technique, my goal is that you will experience improved communication, deeper connection, and overall better harmony with your significant other. So, when do you know that you need to take a timeout? I think the first step is developing an awareness of when a timeout is needed. They say change begins with awareness, but transformation comes from consistent action. The first step is to develop that awareness of when a timeout is needed in a conversation. And how we do that is reflecting on when you're stressed. What are those signs and symptoms that you portray under stress? So recall a last really high stakes, stressful day at the office. Remember that stressful family event or social gathering. How do you show others around you that you're stressed out? How does your partner unconsciously communicate their stress when they're experiencing that bad day? Being aware of those little signs and symptoms, those subtleties of how we give out the unconscious communication that we're having stress, that's imperative for knowing that a timeout might be needed. As our stress levels elevate, communication will stop working. And when communication stops working, stop communicating. Because stress causes communication to break down. Now, we could have pre-existing stressors, which decrease our patience, lower our understanding and tactfulness in communicating with our partner about some emotionally charged subject matters. Also, there might be some certain topics in a relationship that may cause defensiveness, arguments, or fights. This may have caused conflict in the past, and one or both parties in the relationship might be a little leery of bringing up certain topics. I think the biggest four factors that contribute primarily to the breakdown of communication are easily remembered in this acronym HALT. HALT. H. That stands for hungry. When your blood sugars drop, you are not a fully functional human being anymore. Speaking on my restaurant experience, working over a decade at my restaurant, I was a busy bee. I was always going and taking on lots of tables. When it was slow, I was cleaning, I was stocking, I was getting ready for the next rush. With all that output of energy, I would kind of sometimes forget to eat. My blood sugars would drop down, and I became a raging bitch at work. I would lash out at my coworkers. I would appear curt and short and make some passive aggressive comments under my breath with guests that were kind of grumpy. I remember several key conversations that I had with my GM standing in our walk-in cooler where basically he told me that if I don't get my shit together and stop being a jerk, I'm going to lose my job. I realized that my behavior was primarily connected with my low blood sugar levels. You get me not enough calories, and you're going to get a whole different version of Clay. H is hungry. The A in the acronym is angry. When we experience frustrations or having anger in our lives, that's going to elevate those cortisol levels. And this keeps us in that fight or flight mode. As I mentioned in previous episodes, when we are under stress, that blood that's flowing in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that basically separates us from the monkeys, stops flowing there and it goes to the back part of the brain. That's known as our reptilian center. You got it. Under stress, we're going to behave like a reptile. When you stress out an iguana or a lizard, it's going to try and fight back, or it's going to run like hell. When we're experiencing elevated cortisol levels, we're going to try and fight back, getting defensive, or we're going to run like hell, try and get away, both physically and emotionally by checking out in relationships. We have hungry, we have angry. The third element in this acronym is lonely. We all have a need for community and relationships in our lives, some more than others. If one person in a relationship doesn't have that need met, that could create extra social pressure on the other partner to meet that need, which creates more stress on the relationship. Higher stress levels mean more fights, more arguments. So we have hungry, angry, lonely, and the T in the HALT acronym stands for tired. Boy, when we have low energy levels, when we are at the end of our rope, our filters tend to drop. Our threshold for common, everyday, petty human bullshit lowers. Our patience tends to be lacking. So when we experience stress and any of these four primary triggers, that's going to put us in fight or flight, which in modern day relationships is defensiveness. And once communication stops working, stop communicating. Imagine you're on a road trip. You're on that highway, 80 miles an hour, barreling down the highway. You see your tank is empty. You just keep going, right? Let's just get there. We don't have time to gas up. Let's not waste time. Well, eventually, that tank will completely drain dry. So you pull over to the side of the road. Your car is not going anywhere until you fuel up. How many times would you keep turning the engine to keep trying to turn it on and get back up on that road before you realize this is not working and we need to stop and refuel before continuing our journey? Same with the communication. Elevated stress levels, defensiveness hits in. This is not working. We need to stop and refuel in order to keep going. That's when we need to call for a timeout. Now, in a relationship, the person that's responsible for initiating a timeout is the first person that is aware of this dynamic and sees that communication is no longer working. So how do you initiate a timeout? Here are 4 phrases to use when you initiate a proper timeout with your partner. Step 1. This is getting too intense for me. Phrase number 2. I need to take a break. Phrase number 3. I'm going to go do XYZ. Fill in the blank. Phrase number 4. Let's pick this back up at another time. How about interspecific time? How about we talk about this Thursday night after we get the kids down? How about we readdress these issues on Saturday morning when we have our relationship check-in? You're not just saying, hey, I need a timeout, walking out of the room and slamming the door. That's not initiating a proper timeout. Now we need all 4 of these phrases. What if I just said, "This is getting intense for me, I need to take a break"? Okay, very likely your partner's going to try and keep pushing those buttons. What if you said, "I need to take a break and I'm not going to pick this back up, I'm done"? Okay, we're not going to get anywhere. Your partner's going to be like, "Hey, don't use that timeout technique to throw this under the rug." So we need all 4 of these phrases. Now notice, the first 2, you're speaking for yourself. This is getting too intense for me. I need to take a break. We're not speaking for the other person. Telling your partner, "Hey, are you getting a little intense? Do you need to take a break? I'm sensing we need a timeout." That will already put them in more of a defense mode. And now we're going to turn that into an argument. Now, once you utilize these 4 phrases, get out of the room. You need to leave. Because if you stay in that room, either you or your partner is going to try to keep pushing the buttons, getting that argument going, and hashing it out because we got to talk about it right now. But now defensiveness steps in, and we're not going to feel heard. Nobody's going to feel understood. Nobody's going to be especially motivated to change behaviors to better support their partner. That's why we need to take a time out. So let's talk about the benefits of taking that time out during an argument in a relationship. Taking a time out is not about avoiding the issue. It's about creating space to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. So here are 10 key benefits of taking that time out when tension is high. Timeouts prevent you from saying things that you'll regret. Stepping away allows you an opportunity to avoid hurtful comments that can cause damage to the relationship. Oftentimes, when we get angry, we say and do things that we will later regret. Timeout reduces emotional intensity. Pausing allows emotions like anger, frustration, defensiveness to cool down. I always tell my clients, don't make a permanent decision based off of a temporary emotion. Timeouts promote clear thinking. With lower stress, we can actually reflect on what we're feeling and what we really want to communicate to our partners about. Timeout encourages respect and safety. Taking a break shows that you value the relationship enough to prevent things from escalating. Timeout gives both partners a perspective. Timeout apart allows you to consider your partner's point of view and look at the overall bigger picture. Timeout improves problem solving. Calm minds are better at finding solutions instead of defending their positions. Timeout reinforces healthy communication patterns. It sets a standard of addressing issues thoughtfully rather than just yelling or blaming. Timeout prevents physical stress. We all know that arguments and fights, they elevate those cortisol levels, put us in that fight or flight response, and elevated cortisol levels are not a good factor in promoting health and wellness. It allows you to take a break to let your body relax from emotionally being in that fight or flight mode and emotionally feeling like you're running from the bear. Timeout fosters emotional responsibility. Pausing encourages you to process your emotions independently from your partner, and it allows you to do so before involving your partner in finding a solution. This technique is best completed by a feeling letter. Go see my other episode on how to write a feeling letter, where you process your emotions first on paper before letting those emotions get the best of you and causing irrevocable damage in the relationship. Timeout leads to more productive conversation later. After cooling off, couples can engage in a deeper, solution-focused discussion later on. But Clay, I want to talk about this right now. He has been sweeping this under the rug for the longest time, and we're going to hash it out at 11:30 at night. A sign of maturity is the ability to put emotionally difficult conversations on a back burner until a more appropriate time arises. My encouragement with this episode today is for you to create an awareness of how to handle stress and how your partner deals with their stress. Train your brain's reticular activating system to be on the lookout for those 4 primary triggers that might lead to an argument. Be the first one to call for that timeout when communication stops working. Reassure your partner that these issues will be addressed at a better time. Choose to communicate with respect towards your significant other through taking that break when those elevated cortisol levels sends you into that defense, fight or flight mode. Now, eventually, you will develop the relationship skills necessary to no longer need to have to call for that timeout. Until that time comes, remain connected amid a conversation breakdown by calling for that timeout. I highly recommend you apply this relationship tool in your relationships. Now, if you'd like to book a complimentary clarity session with me to gain some further information on how to apply this principle in your relationships, click the link below and choose a time that works best for you. Also, if you've received value from this episode, I would appreciate you clicking that like button, hitting that subscribe button, so you get my monthly relationship tool videos. And if you've been implementing this relationship tool in your relationships, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments section below. Let's stay connected through committing to take a timeout when those emotions intensify. Then we can prioritize holding our partner in high regards without letting that fight or flight dynamic cause irrevocable damage in our relationships.